Hey, what's happening? Baltimore Ravens fans, on your way in the door, go ahead and tap the like button, hit subscribe if you never subscribed, and hit the notification bell so you get updates when we upload new content. Let's talk. So, we're still talking about the Baltimore Ravens fixing their offensive line, not in the draft, not banking on players that we are not certain of, but taking a real look at free agency and seeing what vets we can go shopping for, make a real purchase, and plug them into a starting role for this Baltimore Ravens offensive line. Here's the context. The context is Tyler Linderbaum's contract projections seem to be inching up by the week. And with 2 weeks or more like 10 days before the tampering period starts, there is a potential that somebody starts talking about $24, $25 million for Tyler Linderbaum. Of course, we understand that the Baltimore Ravens have already offered a market-setting contract to Tyler Linderbaum. What that is, we don't know. We can only speculate. But here's the deal. The Baltimore Ravens must have a pivot. And so my thought is if Tyler Linderbaum gets a contract that outprices him from Baltimore, then we need to rebuild the entire interior of the offensive line with the money that was slotted to go to Tyler. How would we do that? By going into free agency and getting a guard, a center, and a guard. Bringing all three in, plugging them into the offensive line, and rolling out in 2026 with a veteran unit, with the exception of Roger Rosengarten, which will be in his third season. This will put us in a position where we're not relying on young, unproven players. No matter how high a player was drafted in that first round, he is still unproven in the NFL. I know the Baltimore Ravens love Emory Jones at the left guard position. He is still unproven in the NFL. And so bringing in three vets, plugging them in, gives us a solidified starting offensive line. And I believe we could do that with some of the players we looked at in the video from yesterday. What we determined was that there is four guys who could come in and fill the center position solidly. Not an exact match, not a complete lateral move from Lindenbaum to somebody else, but for the price tag of about 12 to $15 million, you could get a starting level center. And the bonus is he would not have had an injury designation of the five guys that I presented yesterday. Now, the guard position is a longer list. So we're going to try and breeze through this a little faster. It may not be as telling from player to player, but we're going to do our due diligence and see if we can do a service talking about the guard position. So let's not delay. Let's take a look. Okay, so when we start thinking about and considering interior offensive linemen and we move from center to the guard position, there is none better than David Edwards, guard from the Buffalo Bills. This guy's 28 years old, 6'6", 308 pounds, massive human being. He is considered the elite of the elite in this guard class. And because he's just 28 years old, his payday is going to be massive. When you look at the projections, it's projected to be 3 to 4 years, 70 to 80 million dollars, 19 to 20 million dollars APY. And this guy is probably priced out of Baltimore Ravens range since we need so many other things along the offensive line, but on this team as a whole. But looks like the Buffalo Bills are going to be in some serious competition for maintaining their offensive line. Edwards is a former Pro Bowler, does not give up sacks much, does not give up pressures much, and to protect a mobile quarterback such as a Josh Allen, that is a huge deal. So if you take a look at all of his accomplishments, the things he does well, David Edwards, it makes sense that he's the elite of the elite, and his payday will match that. All right, so when we move on from David Edwards, we have Isaac Siamalu. Hope I pronounced that name right. I probably butchered it. Guard from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nothing would be better than to take a starting offensive lineman from Pittsburgh, right? Now, here's the thing. Isaac is 32 years old already. So he's probably more in line for a 2-year contract, maybe up to a 3 as the projection says, but 6'4", 305 pounds, and he is also considered to be elite. His contract projection is 3 years, $15 to $18 million APY. So you're looking at something like a $45 to $54 million deal. Most of his money probably will be paid up front. Solid starter after coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and again, great in the run game. He's a guard that ranks fourth in the entire NFL, and you don't get much by this guy. Veteran, savvy, strong, powerful, and does exactly what he's supposed to do: block and move dudes out of the way. So when we move on from Isaac, we come down to Joe Bitonio. And he is a guy who may consider retiring. If you've been in Cleveland for a long time, such as Joel has, okay, which means he has not done much winning, at 34 years old, you may want to just hang your cleats up. But if he wants a chance to join a contending team, which the Baltimore Ravens may be in 2026, he could be a solid signing. He's considered to be a starter and a future Hall of Famer. 34, like I said, 6'4", 315 pounds. And his contract projection, if he does not retire, is estimated at 2 years, $10 to $14 million. For a guy of his caliber, does not get hurt. He reminds me of the Hall of Famer also from Cleveland, the left tackle, Joe Thomas, who did not miss games. And Bitonio is very, very similar. He just does not miss games. He has been a staple in Cleveland and a Pro Bowler, just consistent, good in run blocking, good in pass blocking. And I think he could be a good grab and stash for the Baltimore Ravens over the next couple of seasons if we decide to rebuild the entire interior. He will be a guy who would be good to bring in, mentor Emory Jones. And you couldn't ask for a better example than Joel Bitonio from Cleveland. All right. When we move down, we move to Ed Ingram, guard from the Houston Texans. Now, if you're like me, you're kind of sketch on Houston Texans offensive linemen. But Ingram is considered to be one of the top interior offensive linemen in this particular free agency class. He's young, he's 26, 6'4", 312 pounds, so solidly built. And he had a breakout year in 2025. And so when you consider this kid, um, he's not going to cost you a whole lot for a guy who had his best season. 3 years, 10 to 13 million. That doesn't sound too bad for a starting level guard, right? Haven't looked at this guy's tape. Didn't know much about him till I started looking at guards, but he is believed to be a quality starter. And so for a Ravens team who struggled the entire season with the guard play, he could be a great option as the Baltimore Ravens may seek to rebuild the entire interior offensive line. And again, he's a guy that can set up the opportunity to let younger talent, Emory Jones and draft picks from this year's draft, give them an opportunity to develop. Last on our list is Zion Johnson. Not last guard, but last on our list that we're going to present. Zion Johnson from the Los Angeles Chargers, 26 years old, 6'3", 316 pounds. Now, this guy had a very good year, considered a young starter, kind of an up-and-comer, if you will. Had his best season this past season. His projected contract for 2026 is 3 years, 8 to $12 million, which for his talent base could absolutely be a steal. You see, this past season, he only gave up 3 sacks and only 26 pressures. He has really good footwork, really good athleticism. He does not play much with power, but his skill set allows him to stay in front of his defender, wall him off, and it keeps him on schedule in blocking schemes. He's better in the zone run scheme, which may be something that fits what we have going on here in Baltimore. And I think his price point, even if you add a little bit of a bump, that would put him in that 10 to 14 million dollars, which again would absolutely fit the price tag of a total rebuild in the interior. Now, we just took a look at several guards, high end guards who are available in free agency. Several options, several elite options, several strong starting options, and young breakout talent. And there is a couple of more names that could be available in free agency to the Baltimore Ravens. One is Kevin Zeitler, someone we know well in Baltimore, a guard who we should have never let walk away for basically $6 million. He's 35 years old and he still is playing solid. And I think that his contract APY is about 6 to 8 million. And so on a 1 to 2 year deal, you're just looking at 12 to 16 million for a guy who just handles his business. He could be a great mentor to the right tackle, Roger Rosengarten. And if we're rebuilding the entire interior, he could be a low cost but solid quality of a bridge the gap type of a player. He played very well this past year in Tennessee. If we go up north to New York, we have Elijah Vera Tucker, who is a guard who is super talented. He's only 27 years old. He has some athleticism. He's good in run blocking. He's good in pass blocking. And his problem is he's just got stuck in New York, who has been a train wreck for several years. And he may be looking to just relocate, right? Even if the Jets offer him the higher of the deals, he may just be looking to get out of town and just get a fresh start with a franchise who's kind of moving in the right direction. And so when you think about Elijah Vera Tucker, I don't have his measurables in front of me, but I think he is like 6'4", 310-ish pounds, somewhere in there. He may be a little bigger, but his contract APY is roughly 12 to 14 million dollars, and he's probably going to come in somewhere between 13 and 15, actually. And on a 3 year deal, you're only talking about 39 to about 45 million for a guy who's talented, still young. Now, his only concern is injuries. That has been the thing that has held him back. That's why he was not on the list that I showed you just a few minutes ago. But he's still talented. He still could be an option. And then my pick of these last three is Wyatt Tiller. He's 31 years old, and his key attribute is power, power, power. He is the type of run blocker and pass blocker who can put his hands on you, and you aren't really going a whole lot of places. And so I like that he knows the toughness and physicality that it requires to play in the AFC North. And I think he would be a great guy to bring in if we are rebuilding the entire interior. He will be a stabilizing force on one side or another. And his APY is roughly $14 million. So you're looking at maybe a 3 year, $42 million deal, 3 years, 45 million, somewhere in there. But like I said, from my original premise, if you take and you're rebuilding the offensive line, instead of paying Tyler Linderbaum that 23 million, if you add 13-ish million to that, so you're somewhere between 35 and 36 million dollars, right? If you went and bust that down into 312s, you're right in the price range for everybody that I showed you between centers and guards. And then you walk into 2026 not with the questions of what a rookie guard is going to look like, or not even the question marks around a guy like an Emory Jones, who the Baltimore Ravens are high on, but you walk into the next year with a veteran laden offensive line. Then in a draft, you can draft quality potential to develop and be the eventual starters. So that way you don't have those dry seasons where your offensive line looked like it looked last season. So this could be the option that we take if we allow Tyler Linderbaum to walk and we take the rebuild the entire interior approach. You guys let me know what you want me to know. And until next time, I'm out.